If I asked you to describe your financial situation, could you accurately tell me where you are, what you have? Would you even be willing to? No matter what your situation is, I promise you, I've heard worse. I'm Sara McCullough, certified financial planner and certified divorce financial analyst, and I'm sharing some of the stories I've experienced over my career, taking those lessons and turning them into actionable steps for you to use. This is I've Heard Worse. The 2023 Worry Poll tells me that on average, Canadians are worrying about their finances for 15 hours a week. That's up from 10 hours a week in 2022. The Financial Stress Index tells me that money is the top stressor for 44% of Canadians. This top stressor is leading to anxiety, depression, mental health challenges, missed days at work. You get the picture. Why is all this stressy happening? It doesn't take much to figure it out. The last 5 years have been a time. They've been a time globally, as a country, as businesses, and as people. The Financial Stress Index also tells me that 50% of Canadians have said that they're more optimistic about their financial futures, even though they're stressed. So that's great news. And then it tells me that 9 in 10 Canadians are embracing strategies to reduce financial stress and combat growing economic pressure. But when I read that, I think, what the heck does that mean, though? Do you hear that and think, well, I would do something. I would embrace a strategy if I knew what the heck to do. And I mean do that's sustainable, that gives me some breathing room, that gives me some of those 15 worry hours back so that I get to do stuff that I want to do. And then you might be thinking, oh, and by the way, Index, I have done stuff. It didn't work, and I don't know why, and I certainly don't know what would work. And then you give a big sigh. If that's you, I'm so glad that you're listening. And if you've ever come out of the bank after just being told you can afford it, why don't we increase this just in case? And you're thinking, but what about this expense? Or can I still afford this? What happens to this thing over here if I do this thing over here? That's normal. You feel like that because you're missing information. We get stressed when we're missing information. We get stressed when we're missing connections between the pieces of our financial lives. And we get stressed when we try strategies that seem to work for other people, but don't work for us. And we don't know why. When I have an introduction call with potential new clients, they often talk about strategies, about what they've done. They've contributed to an RSP. They've increased their mortgage payments to pay it down faster. They've maybe opened a holding company to defer some taxes. So they talk about strategies and they've done things, but they're still contacting me. So they're still missing something. People generally contact me at 2 different points. They're either feeling paralyzed by their finances, they haven't been making decisions and they want to or they need to, or the second point is they feel like everything's moving too fast. The numbers are too big and they're sliding out of control. Strategies are great. Headline items can be really helpful to give you some information, to give you a direction. But if you don't know exactly how they work or how they would benefit you specifically, or even if they benefit you, those hours of worry are going to stick around. And so what happens financially when we have this worry? Usually, it's the equivalent of what I did with my diet before I met with a dietitian. I did things that I had heard, things that I read on the internet, things that worked for other people. I also did things that I thought I could do without making too many changes in my day-to-day life, like the comfortable, easy things. Did any of those things work? No. Did my dietitian's recommended changes work? Yes, because they were specifically for me. Oh, and they work really well when I do them. They don't work so well when I don't do them. So let's go back to why people contact me. Let me know if any of these things sound familiar to you. We want a larger home, and one just came up in our neighborhood. And we'd really like to buy it, but we just don't know if we can afford it. And we've also been putting off organizing our money for a really long time. We're not really sure what's going on, big picture. Or what about, we have this much cash in our account, and we've been putting off getting a plan for it for a while, and now it feels really like a big decision, and we can't make it. And by the way, this much cash ranges anywhere from $5,000 to $2 million. Or what about the couple who said to me, we each have our own ways of dealing with money, and now we're arguing over whether we can afford to go out for breakfast. We need a different way to handle our money. So do you hear how frequent money worry is? It touches every area of our lives. Because our money touches most areas of our lives in some way. So this feeling of worry when we're not sure, when we don't have strategies that fit us, when we don't have connections between our own financial areas, it's going to cause stress. And definitely it feels like you're the only one who has this problem. But here's what's true. A lot of people have your problem, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but a lot of people feel the same way. The feelings are the same. The problems are similar. What's unique is your solution. That's how we get to solving your specific problem. We all think that everyone else knows how to do this, how to manage their money. They don't. If they did, several things would be true. First of all, we wouldn't have a survey called the Financial Stress Index. Second of all, there would be a financial planning kiosk next to your bank machine. And you would just punch in your numbers, the kiosk would spit out a plan, and you would go and execute on everything it said. There is no financial planning kiosk, and nobody's building one. The other thing that's true is I would have a different career. If most of us could deal with our money as a math exercise, if we could manage the emotions in it, if we could see it objectively, I would have a different career because I wouldn't have enough clients. We wouldn't need financial planners. I do have a career, and we do need financial planners, and there's nothing wrong with that. So why don't we know how to do this? Largely because it's a skill like any other skill. And it takes time, and it takes practice, and it takes expertise to plan well. I don't know how to fix the brakes in my car. I drive my car almost every day. I don't think I lack the smarts to fix the brakes in my car. If I spent enough time, if I practiced enough, I'm sure I could. But I'm not going to because I'm not that interested. Because my talents are best used in other ways. Your talents may be best used in other ways other than focusing on financial planning. So you need help with this. If you work with a lawyer for anything, if you work with an accountant for anything, if you have somebody else cut your hair, you understand this idea of differing skill sets and why it's okay to talk to somebody about something or have somebody help you with something that's not your main skill set. And so why does it feel like long-term financial stability is hard? Why do we feel like sometimes I've got this and then we lose it? Because your life is changing. Your money changes, your priorities change, your goals change, your life changes. And the strategies that got you here won't necessarily carry you farther. I imagine most people listening are familiar with the phrase, what got you here won't get you there. It's the same thing with planning. When I said earlier that a lot of us feel the same way about our money, it's overwhelming, it's confusing, we can't seem to get a grip on it the way that we want. And I said that often the problems are similar. If you think about it, there's only two problems that you can have with money. You can have too much money. That is an actual problem, by the way. If you just thought, shut up, Sarah, I'll take that problem any day. After 21 years of advising, I promise you that you would not actually take that problem. So the first problem you can have with money is too much of it. The second problem you can have with it is not enough. So if there's only two problems, what else is going on? Why is this hard? How do you solve each problem? And that's where your financial planning happens. Your solution is unique to you. Your initial problem is shared by so many people. I said that there were only 2 problems. That doesn't mean there's only 2 questions, because your money needs to be used for your goals. That's the unique part of planning, how to use what you have to build what you want. So let's talk through some common questions. The first one I get often is, where is my money going? This has increased so much. This question has increased so much in the last 3 years. And there are a few ways that I help clients with this, and none of them involve traditional budgeting with a spreadsheet that just popped into your head when I said that word budgeting. There's lots of ways to help clarify, where is your money going? The other question I hear often is, how much do I need to save for retirement? How much do I need to save for my kids' education? How much do I need to have before I feel okay, before I can do what I want when I want? Because we all have multiple things that we want. And we want to know if we can do all the things. Because we want to know, if I do this today, what happens tomorrow? Because I don't know how much I'm willing to give up tomorrow to do this thing today. I often get asked, how much can I spend on leisure stuff, on having fun, on doing what I want to do? So these are the kind of, how much money do I have? I think I have some money, but I'm not sure how much. So how do I figure that out? And without a plan, that's where those 15 hours start creeping up again, because you're not sure. You think you can, so you do it. But then you're not really sure, so maybe you're a little bit guilty. But then you're going to do it again because there's something else. And it seems like you're working hard and everything looks fine and you haven't missed a payment on anything and there's money in your account, so maybe it's okay, but you're just not really sure. So there's your stress hours clicking up. Imagine if you could book a trip, buy a gift, go out with friends, go out for a coffee by yourself, and not hear that voice in the back of your head chirping at you, saying, you're wrecking everything. You're going to end up being a bag lady, you know. Let's go back to those 3 scenarios that I talked about at the beginning. Those clients who wanted to buy a bigger house. They do want a bigger house. Their family's getting bigger, the kids are getting older, there's more of them, and they live in a fairly small house. So they want a bigger house. They're really specific on the location. But as we talked, there's other things that they wanted. And a lot of their planning was around the prioritizing. What were they willing to do? What were they not willing to do? Both now and in the future. So when we talked about a bigger house would be a bigger mortgage like this, and then I was able to show them, then that leaves this much left over. Are you okay with that? And so then we started putting things in. Well, what fits in this? What would be outside? How do we fit it back in? So again, the house is the biggest thing. It wasn't the only thing. And they came out of that process understanding, where are their boundaries? If they spend this much on a house, they've got this much left. If they spend more on a house, they've got less over here. So they've got signposts on how to make decisions to know that they're within their financial stability zone, or maybe they're pushing the boundaries. That breakfast couple, the ones that were fighting over the cost of breakfast, we all know it wasn't the cost of breakfast, really. The argument was over whose shoulders the financial decision-making weight was on. It was on one of them. And by the way, it was on that one because that one didn't want to share the decision-making responsibility. That one, bit of a control freak. So they needed a different strategy for how not to argue. And so we talked about that, and I gave them an option, and it worked for them. Did I know for sure that my first suggestion would work? I did not. But they tried it, and it did work. And now they aren't having those arguments anymore. So again, they've taken away some of those 15 hours of potential worry about the money. Financial planning doesn't just have to answer the really big questions, like bigger house, who makes the money decisions, when can I retire? Sometimes financial planning can answer smaller questions that just bring so much relief. One of my clients called one time. She had talked about a big kitchen renovation, but wasn't ready to take that on. And she was calling to say, I was looking just for new appliances. That's what I can handle this year. And I found an oven that I really like, and it's just more than I've ever spent on an oven in my life. Can I buy it? And what she was really asking is, if I do this today, am I okay tomorrow? Am I going to regret this later? And I said, yes, you can buy it. It seems expensive, but it's fine. It fits. That's money that you can spend however you want without disrupting the things that you need to spend money on. And she was thrilled. Another client called one time with a really complicated plan to change his investments around and put a concentrated investment over here, because then if that stock went up, then in 3 to 5 years, he could buy his dream car. So really the goal was to buy a car. And so he had this complicated plan because he thought, if I took this tiny amount of money now and it grew, then I could use that money to buy the car, because that would be the responsible thing to do. And I said to him, you could just buy the car. You could just take the purchase price money out of your investment account and buy the car. And he said, but it's an expensive car. Like, what about the mortgage? We just moved. And what about all the things we want to do for the kids? What about our retirement? And I said, yes, you can do all of those things and still buy the car. Just buy the car. You don't have to do this complicated investment plan and hope it goes up and hope nothing else happens in the market. Just buy the car. So do you see how financial planning can get you answers to the small things and the big things, and take some of that energy that you've been using to worry and redirect it? So I want you to think about some of the goals that you have and some of the motivations that you have, things that get you really excited. And do you actually know if what you're doing with your money is supporting those goals? Are they working in the same direction, your goals and your money? Are they working against each other? Are you sure? If you're not sure, that's okay. Knowing that you're not sure is knowing more than you did before you started listening to this episode. If you had more information and context about your own money, would you make different decisions? How many of those worry hours could you get back? So we've been talking a little bit about stress and worry and money and how it all gets tangled up and why it gets tangled up. And I just wanted to be clear here that I also have my shaky moments with money, not because I don't know how to do it, but because it's mine. Because now it's my money, it's my family, it's my goals, it's my retirement, right? One of the benefits of working with a financial planner is you are getting an objective opinion. You are getting somebody outside yourself, outside you and your partner, outside of your family. So objective is important. And as much knowledge as I have, as much skill as I have, it can't get over the fact that I get emotional about my money. So I have my own planner and I have my own shaky moments. One of the things I was never going to do in my career was be self-employed because I hate uncertainty. And yet that's what I did in 2017. So I needed a way to deal with that worry that caused. And I did figure it out. It took me a little bit, but I figured it out. And some days I still have to walk myself all the way through that. How do I check that it's going to be okay? How do I check that a shaky moment is just a shaky moment and not financial risk? So I have a process for that, in the same way that your financial planning is going to give you a process for that. So if you're thinking, that all sounds great, but I've tried this before and it didn't work, I'm sure you have, because this matters to you, because you have skills. And if you've tried it before and didn't work, I want you to think about all of the other things you had to practice before you got good at it, before you found the strategy that worked for you. There is no one size fits all here. And again, that's the importance of planning, is finding the thing that works for you, finding the advisor that works for you. So if you've tried before and it didn't work, that was just attempt number 1, or attempt number 5, or attempt number 8. There is something that will work for you. Managing your money isn't a one-shot thing, because it's complex, because your situation changes, and because you need to get the information in the right context for you. And something did work. You've listened this far, which I think means you're still sure that there's an answer out there for you, and you're right. So what could you do right now that would help with that stressy money feeling? What I want you to do over the next couple of weeks is notice when that voice in your head is the loudest. If you are thinking, I don't even know where to start with all of this, Sarah, it sounds great if I could get a plan, but good grief, I don't know where to start. I want you to start with that voice in your head. When is it the loudest? Is it when you pick up a coffee? Is it when you go out for dinner? When you buy new clothes? When you think about retiring or buying a house? Once you've found that loudest point, I want you to pick a date by which you'll have an answer for that voice. You'll know which answer you need based on when you get the most stressed, when that voice is the loudest. Is that voice the loudest when you're spending? Then I want you to commit to listing out your income and expenses in the next 8 weeks. If you just heard that and panicked, don't. In the following episodes, I am going to give you strategies, tips, charts, ideas on how to do this. This is a big area, and you can work on it in layers. You can do small things at a time. But if that voice in your head is the loudest when you are spending or when you are buying certain things, then that's where you need some answers to reduce the number of stress hours that you have every week. Is that voice the loudest when you think about retiring? Then I want you to commit to finding a financial planner to do a retirement projection for you. Check in on where you're at now. And what does it look like if you keep doing what you're doing? Can you hit your goals? Because when we think about money stress and we think about that voice in the back of our heads, to reduce that stress, you need to be able to talk back to that voice. That voice isn't going to leave, but it can be quieter. That's what I needed to do when I started being self-employed and that income uncertainty. And I could rip myself apart over why I had done this. Why did I leave a job with a paycheck and benefits and a pension to be self-employed? I'm a planner. I can tell you exactly how risky that was. And I needed to be able to answer that voice. And so do you. It's not going away. We need it. It protects us. But sometimes in trying to protect us, it's actually hurting us. So if you want to worry less, you will need to be able to answer that voice. And you do that by understanding your current financial situation, the current strategies that work for you, the context that you have, and the choices that you're making. Over this series, we're going to talk about how to find your own pieces, how to understand them better, and how to put them in context. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. I would love to hear the questions that you have, and I hope you continue listening for the strategies that we'll discuss over this series. Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out the other episodes. There are 12 in this series, each one focusing on a different important aspect of financial planning. You can listen from start to finish, or pick and choose the episodes that matter most to you. Consider sharing an episode with someone else who needs to hear it. Thank you for liking and subscribing. And remember, no matter what you think of your financial situation, I've heard worse, which means you and I can make it better.